Good afternoon. I hope you're well today. I want to get this story to you in about 10 minutes because it really feels as though a storm's coming in today. Let's hope we can talk about the history of the area for just about 10 minutes before the storm breaks on us. I want to take you back to the 18th of May, a boiling hot day, the 18th of May 1948. 1948, Britain was just coming out of the war years, rationing was still in, and on that terrible day round about Whitsuntide of that year was the incident of the Wath Manvers rail disaster. A very sad story about a train wreck which took the lives of 8 people and caused devastating injuries to many others, but a very positive story in how the community came together and rallied at a time of great tragedy, but showed really strongly how people can come together. Maybe there are parallels in what's happening at the moment. So I'm down at the Manvers area, and I'm looking at the memorial stone to the Wath Manvers rail disaster. I hope you can see this. At the top, it's dedicated to the Gilbert and Ellis Islands. Now that was the name of the train locomotive of the engine which crashed, and there's its number. And as you can see, the stone is not only to those who lost their lives, but it also serves as a tribute. It also serves as a tribute to those who helped in the rescue attempts. Now, this area has completely changed beyond all recognition from the 1940s, indeed the 1980s, when this whole area was covered with mine workings, railway lines, coking ovens, coking plant, a real hive of industry that employed many thousands and thousands of people. The actual train crash took place around about 100 yards, 150 yards beyond there where those buildings are. And there was an embankment there. There's absolutely no trace of that now. But the stone was placed pretty much as close as possible. The stone was unveiled on the anniversary of the crash in 1997. The idea came around. I was serving as a member of the Dearne Valley Partnership Board at that time in the 1990s, and when the whole area was being landscaped and reformed, the suggestion was, well, there's room for some artworks and some heritage works. Now we're quite well represented with mining artefacts, and I suggested, well, there was also a railway tradition in this area, many of the lines now lost, and also I mentioned the crash in 1948, which was pretty much being forgotten, really, apart from those who were directly involved. But as I said, it wasn't only about the crash; it was about how this community came together to help those people who were involved in that on that terrible day. Now, a very good friend of mine, Mike Brearley, actually wrote a short story about the disaster a few years ago. I think the book's out of print now, but you might be able to get it from the library whenever libraries do reopen. So let's sort of talk about the train wreck itself. The service was the 11:45 St Pancras to Bradford Foster Square. So powering through, I'll tell you, the route it came through, it would have come through the Masborough station at Rotherham, through Parkgate, through Kilness West station, through Swinton Town station. It wouldn't stop. It was an express. It reached the Wath Road junction where the line splits off. The line that we now travel to Leeds goes through Bolton-on-Dearne. That was originally called the S&K, the Swinton and Nottingley Railway, and that branched off at Wath Road Junction. The rest of it powered through here, where we're standing now. No trace of the line remains, but it went through Wath, Manvers, on towards Cudworth, then onto Leeds and Bradford and York and that direction. So the railway was up on a high embankment, and the train left the rails round about 10 to 4 on that really hot afternoon, and the consequences were something like this. This aerial photograph, this aerial shot, shows you how the coaches, the restaurant car ploughed over each other, the train engine overturned, spilling out hot fire and ash all over the place. And another photograph here shows the arrival of the rescue crane to try and righten the coaches and get the line cleared. Now, referencing the effort that was made by local people, that involved a huge number of local people. First of all, there was the emergency services. The fire service was standing by because the train engine had tipped over. There was still a red hot fire in the boiler, with a chance that the coach, the whole embankment, would catch fire. The ambulance service obviously were doing their utmost, transferring patients from scene up to Montague Hospital in Mexborough. And amazingly enough, the very first casualty arrived only 11 minutes after the crash. They may have been taken by car, I don't know. But then the staff at Montague Hospital obviously dealing with the many casualties. General practitioners from the area, including a lady doctor from Wath, Dr. Campbell, Dr. Bartier, from Swinton and Mexborough. The GPs, they came on scene. And the GPs weren't only general practitioners, they were trained surgeons. And one of the incidents, they actually amputated a leg of one of the trapped victims actually on scene. So they did a field surgery operation on scene. It quite amazing. The miners from Manvers and from Wath Colliery, they came along and they were helping shore up the coaches to make sure they didn't tip anymore. They were putting timbers and planks under. They got acetylene welding kit to cut through the wreckage to bring out the dead and the wounded. The ladies of the Manvers canteen were providing hot drinks and food for the rescuers, and also for the passengers who weren't injured. They needed a cup of strong tea for the shock. The blood transfusion service in Sheffield mobilised. They sent out blood for the hospital for all the operations that were going to be needed, and the local clergy also were involved, comforting the injured. There was one little girl who did survive. It was by pure chance that she survived, and she was almost cut in half with her injuries. And a surgeon from Rhodesia who was working at Mexborough actually said, "I'm going to save this child," and he saved the child, and she grew up and she had a family of her own, although she was permanently disabled after her horrendous injuries. So the 8 people that died, I think we should read their names now so we don't forget. There was Ethel Mary Freitas, Elsie Watson, Sarah Ann Clarkson, Floris May Hallis, Eric Coulton, Mary Jane Stanton, Nora Kitson. They all had their stories. For example, Eric Coulton, he'd served all the way through the Second World War in the RAF, survived the RAF, and died in a train crash here in South Yorkshire. The name of Bert Wilshire, he was actually the train driver of the express engine. He was based in London. He was a London man, lived in Crittlewood area, but he was working that train as a mainline front link driver, all the way from St Pancras right the way through to Bradford Foster Square. Bert Wilshire was very, very badly burned with 2nd and 3rd degree burns. He was taken to Montague Hospital. His son actually managed to come up all the way from London to see him, but he perished of his injuries. It was believed he was actually blinded and he wasn't going to survive. So it was a terrible death. The train drivers union ASLEF looked after all his funeral arrangements and looked after the family afterwards, and their family was very grateful for what ASLEF did for his 2 sons and his wife after that. Indeed, we actually had his son come on quite an emotional visit to South Yorkshire way back in 2003. We actually had him come and visit the memorial and spend a day with us in South Yorkshire. we in May 2018 we also had a 70th anniversary event at the L&R Club in Swinton, where we had lectures and displays commemorating the rail crash, and also got a number of survivors and their relatives along, and people who helped in the rescue, or their ancestors as well. So these things fade from memory. There was a great inquiry into the crash. Again, this was a time where the railways were coming out of the Second World War. During that war, the railways had been hammered to pieces, made to work very, very hard for that war effort. So the system was pretty much worn out. It was recently nationalised. So this was classed as the London North Eastern region of British Railways, newly nationalised system. And the report went into great detail about how the tracks expanded in the heat of that very exceptionally hot May day. And there was a great investigation of the maintenance of the track. One of the features was that the rails were actually resting on ash, compacted ash, instead of proper ballast, instead of proper stones. And that was a contributory factor, really, that sort of shifted the lines with the buckling of the heat as well, causing the derailment, causing the train to crash down the embankment and losing those 8 lives. 8 lives. There were many people admitted to hospitals, stayed there for a very, very long time, and some of them, they had life-changing injuries. So it did improve railway technology, because they got rid of they improved the ballasting arrangements for the trains after that. So Wath Manvers rail disaster, 18th of May 1948, remembering those who died in the rail crash, but also remembering the great community effort that rallied together and helped those who were injured. So thanks for that. Thanks for listening in, and I hope to see you again tomorrow at 4 o'clock, and we'll talk about another aspect of our local heritage that exists around the town of Swinton and Kilness. So goodbye for now. Stay safe. See you tomorrow.